After almost a year of being out of action, Unit 1 of the Koeberg nuclear power station near Cape Town is back online. Eskom said that it had been synchronized successfully with the power grid overnight. But while Eskom says Unit 1 is back, of course we have all those other issues, which means that we are still in stage 3 in terms of the rolling blackouts today, spoken about by the Minister. To discuss, we're now joined by Professor Sampson Mamphweli from the South African National Energy Development Institute. Prof, it's great to have you with us as always. Let's start with Koeberg Unit 1. Eskom says this is a huge milestone in the generational and operational recovery plan. How significant is it to have Koeberg Unit 1 back?
Good evening to you and the viewers. It's quite important to have Unit 1 back. It's been off for quite a long time, and they've been doing some work there in terms of refueling and servicing the unit so that they can extend the life of that particular unit. So that particular unit gives us about 920 megawatts, which is equivalent to lowering load shedding stages by one stage. So that's quite important in terms of where we seated at the moment. You will recall that even when the Koeberg power station was operating optimally without the two units being fixed or anything like that, we originally determined from the Eskom point of view that we needed about 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts for us to avoid load shedding. And with the current unplanned capacity loss factor sitting at about 17,000 megawatts, it couldn't be a better time for it to come back at this particular point in time.
So technically it could save us one stage of load shedding, but there's so many other issues. That's why we are in stage 3. It sounds like the Minister is pretty frustrated with what is happening at the moment.
Yes, so there are still other issues. The main issue is the fact that the coal fleet is not operating optimally. So basically, we're seeing between 17,000 and 18,000 megawatts. That is down due to unplanned maintenance. So basically, it's breakdowns. I've been tracking the system for the past 3 weeks. The breakdowns were sitting at about hovering around 17,000 megawatts. That's a huge kind of number, and some of it is contributed obviously by partial load losses, which basically means that even the power stations that are operating, they are not operating at optimally or at maximum capacity that they are designed to operate at. So that speaks to the age of the power plants and the maintenance regime around the power plants. So I tracked the maintenance regime from 2018 to date, and I discovered that Eskom has been maintaining up to about 10%. And that was quite low in terms of the global standards. So there's a maintenance backlog which is causing some of these problems that we're facing today, and Eskom needs money to deal with that, which they don't have.
So, Prof, please comment on 2 issues. I mean, there have been claims of sabotage before when you see a huge number of units at different stations going off at the same time. You can comment on that. Otherwise, what about all the maintenance that was done in winter? It's often said that that's the time for the maintenance, and we know that there was high stages at some point, some of that due to maintenance?
Yes, so there was some maintenance that was done in the lead up to winter, and also during winter because the demand was a bit low. But we're dealing with a highly unpredictable kind of a system, mainly because of age and the historical issues around maintenance. So what happens is that you find that in some units, some of the parts are already obsolete, which basically means that when you take down a unit, for instance, for maintenance, you basically need to renew the entire unit, because in some cases, when they return the same unit to service, the same unit, a component within the same unit breaks down. The Minister indicated in his briefing today there were issues around the late return of units to service. And in most cases, what happens is that the Eskom takes down units for repair after detecting particular component failures. And then when they take it down, they then realize during the course of maintenance that it's not only the unit that the part or the component that they detected that is faulty, there are other parts or components that are faulty. And then that delays the return of that particular unit because they then need to order the particular component.
So, Prof, and this speaks to the overall strategy, which is to try and extend the life of several of the power stations. Let's look at Koeberg. Of course, it's different because it's a nuclear power station, but I understand that Unit 1 has been offline for almost a year. It was fixed, then Unit 2 will be offline, and then they come back online, and then they have to be taken off again. So it's a pretty long process. Overall, was the right decision made there to extend the life of Koeberg by another 20 years or so?
Yeah, that was a good decision by government. And the good part is that they couldn't just extend the life of Koeberg. In terms of the regulations, they need to do refueling, they need to do proper maintenance of the various parts of the unit, which basically means that they need to do renewal of the unit so that it can run for the next 20 years. And unfortunately, that is exactly what needs to happen in most of the 6 power stations that were identified to be problematic. Most of their units need to be taken down for between 3 and 6 months, not a year. The Koeberg power station took a year because it was a difficult case. In terms of the skills, we know that South Africa has got the skills in the nuclear sector, but most of them, the people left, and then Eskom had to import skills from elsewhere, and they didn't get the best skills, by the way. That's why it took quite a long time. But it should take between 3 and 6 months to basically take down the unit and then do the refueling and all that. So this is basically what is required of most of the coal power stations. Otherwise, if we don't do that, we will continue to have these massive breakdowns, and all we need now is new generation capacity, which is constrained by the grid constraints that the minister referred to as well.
All right, and let's talk about that next time. In terms of Unit 2 of Koeberg, Eskom says it hopes to learn from what happened with Unit 1, so maybe it will be much quicker in terms of adding those steam generators and cleaning it and polishing it off for another 20 years. That was Prof. Sampson Mamphweli, Head of the Department of Science and Innovation's Energy Secretariat at the South African National Energy Development Institute.